All right, let's get started today. We're going to talk about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is yet another revolution, and I know we're talking about revolutions this week here at Mr. Wagstaff. We said revolution. I thought we were going to talk about some wars. I thought we were going to talk about some cool stuff. No, what we end up talking about is the scientific revolution and these other type of economic revolutions, and now we're talking about the Industrial Revolution. Very cool stuff to talk about. Yes, all of this stuff has to take place before you can get to the actual like wars revolution with stuff like the American Revolution, the English Revolution, the French Revolution. Man, the French Revolution is crazy. But we got to talk about this revolutionary idea. Hopefully y'all can see me. This revolutionary idea of the way industry is going to change during this time period. This picture is a little misleading. This is actually from the second Industrial Revolution, which is going to happen about the 1800s, when we're really going to talk about the 1700s today. But this picture was just so much better. But we're going to talk about what happens and people start mass producing things, and it's going to change a lot of people's lives and therefore lead to new governments and then therefore lead to wars. All right. So the Industrial Revolution, it refers to the greatly increased output of machine-made goods that began in England in the mid-1700s and spread around the world. England's kind of the beginning of this Industrial Revolution where they're going to start mass producing things. A big reason is because England has a lot of capital. It means extra money that they can use to invest in stuff. So Britain had that going for it. Britain was a dominant country, was one of the most dominant countries on earth. So they owned the colonies. And we had mentioned this, I believe, the last time we were in class. So the colonies are making a whole bunch of cash crops. We talked about tobacco a lot in the American colonies that Britain owns. They also are now starting to switch over to cotton. Everybody wants cotton. The massive production that America has for cotton that then gives it to England, and then the rest of the world is going to buy cotton from England, is really going to be kind of the catalyst, the thing that's going to motivate this Industrial Revolution. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is England making clothes and like the textile industries kind of thing. This is going to be a huge motivating factor. And once you realize how you can mass produce things, making clothes out of cotton, you can use those ideas for really mass producing anything else. So there used to be a long, slow process for doing things, and they're really going to speed that up here in the Industrial Revolution. Speed of travel, information, all of that is going to change during this time period in the Industrial Revolution. So this is a more typical 1700s picture. The reason I show the other picture is the other picture is an actual photograph, and cameras didn't come out until the 1800s. So this is just a really accurate drawing. So I think the second Industrial Revolution picture, where they're using a lot more coal and stuff, is a cooler picture. But this is more of what it would look like. Now, prior to this, everybody just lived in their own little cottage and in their own little thing at their own house. Now factories are going to come out and it's going to fundamentally change things. But we got to explain to you, I want to explain why it ends up being a big thing where people start going and working in factories instead of working from home. All right. So the question here is, why was England a naturally good place for the Industrial Revolution to begin at? What did England have going for it? The reason it's a good place is they were like the most powerful country on earth at the time. So if there was going to be something new and cutting edge, it would probably have happened in England anyway. Another good reason is they had a lot of extra money because they owned like most of the world. And since they owned most of the world, they had the ability to do things that other countries couldn't, like invest in new ways of producing. Those are why England was a naturally good place for the Industrial Revolution. And now make sure you're getting two sentences for these, because doing it this way, I got to see two sentences. The sentences do not have to be long, but they do have to actually be full sentences with a period at the end and then a second sentence with a period at the end of that one. All right. So agriculture leads to industry. This is kind of the industry is talking about cash crops, and we're going to focus real heavily on cotton here when we start talking about the production. But there's also tons of food. there was absolutely massive amounts of food. They figured out farming. And so what had happened is we had figured out some things that makes farming a lot easier, right? And you can make a lot more food. Remember, the original, when people switched over to farming, the reason the population took off is because there was more food. Well, we kind of hit another situation like that in the 1700s where we were making as much food as possible, but our population couldn't grow because we couldn't make more food. Then some breakthroughs happened here where we found ways of making food even faster and more efficiently, makes more food and then more population, right? So let's start here. So there were some things that happened that made us able to make more food on the same amount of land. All right. The first thing here is crop rotation. I don't know if y'all talk about this in middle school. It's such a simple idea, and it doesn't seem like it would make a huge difference to things, but it really does. So what a crop rotation is, I got a graph here if this will help you. All right. So super simple, but it works in all types of different things. I'm not a horticulturalist, so I don't want to say anything wrong here because a lot of people out there know a lot more than I do. But here's the basic concept. Each year, so say you each year on crops, you grow these 3 crops. Every year you grow, in this example, a tomato. I don't have legume. Wow. Probably should have looked at that before I started recording. I have no idea. Make fun of me. And then a carrot. I do know how to pronounce that one. This is what you're growing every year. However, if you notice, if these are the crops, so you have 3 different crops, each year you're growing the same thing, but they switch crops around. All right. What happens if you grew all tomatoes this year and then all tomatoes this year and all tomatoes this year? It sucks all the nutrients out of soil for the tomatoes. And by year 3, you're not growing very many tomatoes because they just can't grow well. By rotating your crops, you're putting nutrients back into the soil so that next year's crops have something to grow on. By doing this, you are able to maximize your output every single year. And so crop rotation system drastically help people increase the amount of food that they had, which again will lead to a bigger population. All right. Jethro Tull invents a seed drill. This super awesome thing. Now it looks silly, but this thing, what's important about it is it's going to put seeds out in an exact amount, exactly a right line. If you put too many seeds too close together, then they can kill each other and they won't grow well. If you're too far apart, you're wasting space. The seed drill methodically goes through and gives you the greatest chance of each seed growing. So using science like this helps you maximize the amount of food that you can grow on a single crop. And let's see. Because of these things, that populations are going to increase. So the question here is, now that people can use these new agricultural advances to produce larger crops, especially cash crops, all right, what issue could they run into if they produce too much? So this is kind of an advanced question here. We talk a lot about this when we get to American history, because you have got to make, if you make too much and there's not enough people to buy it, you can put yourself out of business. Say everybody wants tomatoes. So you grow 1,000 tomatoes and everybody buys them. So you make 10,000 tomatoes the next year. But the problem is only 2,000 people want to buy it. You have 8,000 leftover tomatoes that you spend a lot of money growing. You can literally make so much food or grow too much of something, you can put yourself out of business. So that's the issue they could run into. If they produce too much, they can put themselves out of business. What they're going to figure out with the agricultural or the industrial revolution is, especially with cash crops, like when they're growing cotton. They have all this extra cotton. How in the world, if I've grew so much cotton, I can only make 5 t-shirts a day, but I have enough cotton to make 10 t-shirts a day. People don't want to buy the cotton. They want to buy the t-shirt. How am I going to do that? That's why the Industrial Revolution is going to be important, is since we've learned how to grow stuff really fast, specifically cotton, we have to find a way to turn all this extra cotton we have into clothing a lot quicker than we have in the past. Because the old way of doing it it's like a traffic jam. Everything gets logged up there. So that's a big reason for the Industrial Revolution. But the issues of producing too much is either you can't sell it. If you make too much, you can't sell it. All right, and that is a big issue. All right, so New technology is going to trigger the Industrial Revolution. There's a handful of new things that come out that is going to fundamentally change the system. Let's simplify this. From now on, let me make sure we are going to talk about cotton. Cotton is the main thing we're going to talk about, because the cotton is going to be the main backbone of the Industrial Revolution. It's not the only one. There's all types of different things the Industrial Revolution does that doesn't involve cotton, but the cotton is probably the most important one that's going to push us along. So there's a handful of inventions that come out. All right. So this is the steam engine. It's super simple. Basically, it's like a teapot. If you've ever put water in a teapot and brought it to a boil, it starts to whistle. And the reason that is because it's turning the water inside the teapot into steam. Steam takes up more space than liquid. And it has to find a way to shoot out, and it shoots out the little teapot thing and whistles. That technology has been around for thousands of years, meaning a teapot. All they decided to do is, what if, when that air comes shooting out of that teapot and whistles, what if we put like some type of wheel or something that can spin outside of it, so that pressurized air that hits it spins it and works as a machine. This is the logic behind the steam engine. It wasn't anything new, cutting edge. James Watt is the guy who basically perfected the original steam engine. But now you basically have an engine that can do things. Once you have an engine, you can slap that thing on all types of stuff, and it's going to be the reason we all have cell phones and we talk to dang satellites in space flying around us. All starts with the Industrial Revolution of people getting smarter. All right, from the bubonic plague in the 1200s, 1300s, all the way up to we're now in the 1700s, and they're like, what if I could make something cool that makes my life easier? Industrial Revolution. Steam engine here is going to make people's lives a lot easier because they're going to be able to mass produce stuff. All right. So there's this thing called a cotton gin. Oh my gosh, this is like the worst picture I could have put on here of a cotton gin, because this seems complicated. Here's the simple, and we'll talk about it a lot in American history, but here's a simple concept of what the cotton gin is and why it's necessary. Not surprisingly, it deals with cotton. So growing cotton, especially in America, is not an issue. We have the climate, we have tons of area, you can grow the cotton, and it grows about knee high, and it like blooms, and it's like a cotton ball. It's like a dandelion on crack. Like it's a fluffy little ball. But the problem is that when you take that little cotton ball off, there's a seed inside it. That seed is really, really hard to get out because every single fiber of that cotton is dug into the seed. So what people are trying to do is, most of their day when they're growing cotton is they're just de-seeding the cotton, and it takes forever to do it. The cotton gin is a much smaller machine than this. It's basically like a box. This is a big industrial version they'll make. Basically, there's this guy, Eli Whitney, who makes a cotton gin, which takes the hardest part of growing cotton, which is getting the seed out of it, the easiest part. He basically just, it is a larger version of it. So he put all the cotton with the cotton balls in here. And then as all the cotton ball, this thing spins around and kind of pushes all the cotton balls in a circle here. What this is, this thing's spinning really fast. They call it a saw. It basically has, just has, come on brain, think, just ropes on it that are whipping the cotton off of the seed. So the seed, all right, is falling down here, and then the extra cotton is coming out this way, all right, which they're calling lint. So the hardest part of growing cotton used to be to get the seed out of it. Now it's the easiest part of growing cotton. So now you have tons of cotton, as much cotton as you can possibly use. All right, so everybody wants clothes made out of cotton. It used to be you either had your clothes made out of wool, which are super, super yucky, especially if you're in warmer climates, or you had it made out of silk, which is only from China, and China is and it's really expensive. China is also very secretive on how they get silk, which is through worms, which I don't think people even believe that, but it's true. So silk was from China, but it was extremely expensive. Wool was in the most part of the world. Cotton was cheap, and you could get it anywhere, mainly from the New World. So cotton is going to be the motivating factor for a lot of these new inventions. All right, so the way they had previously done things, it's called the putting out system. All right, the putting out system is how people mass produced stuff for shirts. So here's what would happen. It used to be, and this is a really good graph. I mean, this picture is great. Guy shows up with a big old load of cotton, and he goes, we're going to say this is Dorothy and Sally and Doris and Gertrude and Edna. All right. They all live right here in this town. This dude shows up with cotton and drops it off. All right. They spend a week and a half doing all their stuff, turning the cotton into thread and weavers and finishing all this other stuff. So they do everything at their own home. This dude will show back up like a week and a half later, pick up all the finished products and take it to town. They might make 100 t-shirts in that amount of time. All right. Making 100 t-shirts in a week and a half is fine until all of a sudden this guy wants to bring in 40 tons of cotton, like 50 more wagons. And it's like, all right, can you do the 50 more wagons by next week? Edna's like, nah, like I can only do so much. There is a big problem with the putting out system because there's only so much they can produce. They're already working as fast as they can. There's nothing else they can do. So what's going to end up happening is these new inventions come out. All right. This thing called a flying shuttle. And oh my gosh. So I don't have any idea how this stuff works. So I look it up and find the pictures of it. I know it's famous. I have not spent a lot of time in a textile mill. So I am not an expert in any way, shape, or form on how this stuff actually works. So I'm just going to acknowledge my ignorance early on. So if I make myself look like a fool, I can just accept it early on rather than pretending I know what I'm talking about when I don't. There's three big things here that fundamentally change. The flying shuttle, the spinning jenny, and this is spinning jenny, and then a water frame. If you notice how big these machines are, Edna and Gertrude aren't going to have these things at their house. Rich people, all right, who can own a factory are going to open a factory and they're going to buy these big machines. So Edna and Doris, all right, the other people that are over here in this town, if they want to use this, which they have to because they have to mass produce it, they can't do it from their home anymore. They have to come to the factories where these machines are and work on the factories. That's the big change, is when these big inventions come out, like the spinning jenny and the water frame and the flying shuttle, when these things come out that can produce things really, really fast, you can't put these at your house. So now instead of the cotton coming to you at your house and then you making stuff and then sending it on its way, which is the putting out system, you now have to travel from your house to a factory. And this is a fundamental social change in society because now people are having to leave their house to go to work. That's not, people were farmers and stuff. You worked at home. That's just what you did. Now people are leaving their house to go work with these huge factories at work, or these huge machines that are owned by the factory. And so a lot of people start moving from the countryside closer to the cities because that is where these big machines are at. And it's the only place that has jobs. If you try to continue the putting out system while everybody else is working here, you're not going to make any money because they can make 50,000 t-shirts a day and you can make 7. So these big machines fundamentally change people's lifestyle because people have to then travel to the cities to get jobs at factories. So what is the reason behind the necessity for needing to speed up the process for producing faster in factories, especially products that use cash crop? So why? Why did we have to all of a sudden start making stuff faster? The putting out system was fine, right? Here's why. Because we'd gotten so good with the agricultural revolution, we have more food. So what do we have more of? That's right. We have more people. So now that we have more people want t-shirts. More people want more stuff. You have to produce faster to satisfy the higher population of people. So that is why there is a bigger need for this stuff. So the reason behind the necessity for needing to speed up the process for producing faster in factories, there's more people out now. More people want things. So you have to make it faster so that everybody has enough to get things. All right. So this will be the last thing we talk about today. Factories are born. The new machines doomed the putting out system. Not surprisingly, because they can just mass produce stuff. Long sheds were built to house the large machinery. Spinners and weavers are now traveled to the first factories where workers and machines are brought together. This is what it will look like. Again, this is a photograph, so it's like from about 150 years after what we're talking about, but it's the similar concept. People come packing, instead of all staying at your own house, everybody just packs in here. They sure ain't social distancing, are they? So they are packed in here in this factory where they are making things as fast as possible. And this is another picture of 1800s cotton or textile factory. Again, photographs are cool. That's why I'm putting it up here. This is a little after what we're talking about, but it's the same concept that they're going to factories to mass produce stuff at factories for the production of cotton. So how did the Industrial Revolution change the way in which people worked and made a living? Where did they have to start going to? They had to start going to factories. People could no longer work from home. In order to mass produce stuff, you had to go to the factories. So it really changed people's lives because for the first time, people now had to leave their homes every day and go work in a factory. If you live 5 miles away from town, you had to walk 5 miles to work. It doesn't take long. Guess where people want to live at? That's right. They want to live in the cities because it's a lot quicker to get to work and you don't have to walk 5 miles each way. So people start really motivating and moving towards the cities because that's where the jobs are, because now this stuff is being done in the factories instead of the putting out system. All right. So you guys go on and watch the video clip I got for you. And I will see you guys tomorrow.